When one of the most recognizable names in entertainment agrees to appear on a popular daytime talk show, you expect an easy exchange of smiles, laughs, and light banter about upcoming projects. But that's not what happened when Jennifer Lopez arrived on the set of The View. What was meant to be another promotional stop in her busy press tour turned into one of the most emotionally charged and unexpected moments of her public life. And it all unraveled almost immediately. Jennifer had walked into the studio that morning confident and glowing, her signature grace radiating as cameras rolled and the audience erupted in cheers. She was there to promote a new film, discuss her upcoming tour, and perhaps even drop a few personal anecdotes for her loyal fanbase. Nothing seemed out of place until she sat down. The applause hadn't even died down before the tension thickened. Joy Behar, filling in as the main host that day, didn't extend the usual warm welcome. Instead, she barely glanced at Jennifer, her fingers flipping briskly through a stack of notes as the cameras zoomed in. "So, Jennifer," Joy began, her tone already colder than the studio air conditioning. "Your new film, yet another rom-com, another version of the same role successful woman who finds love where she least expects it. Don't you ever get bored playing the same part over and over?" The words hit like a slap. There was a moment brief but telling when even the camera crew hesitated, unsure whether they'd heard her right. Jennifer, for her part, kept her poise. A flicker of confusion passed across her face, but she smiled through it. Her voice calm as she replied, "I think stories about love and connection resonate with people because they're timeless. I always try to bring something new to each role, even if the genre remains familiar." But Joy wasn't finished. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, voice rising just a notch. "Timeless or tired? I mean, how many times can we watch the same plot dressed up in different outfits? Your fans might be loyal, but come on, Jennifer wears the risk." The other co-hosts shifted uneasily. Sunny Hostin looked ready to interject, her hand hovering just off the table. Sarah N stared down at her mug. But Joy kept going, her words sharper now. "Do you really believe you're offering something fresh, or are you just playing it safe? Cashing in while the formula still works?" Jennifer adjusted slightly in her seat. The ease in her posture was starting to wane, her smile no longer effortless. "Every project has its challenges," she said, her voice now edged with a carefully measured steel. "I've worked hard to produce films that matter to me, with teams who believe in the stories we're telling. I'm proud of the work, proud of the formula." "Huh," Joy replied with a scoff, her fingers making air quotes around the word formula. "Or maybe you're just proud of keeping your face in front of the camera, no matter what it takes. Let's be real, when's the last time you did a project that actually mattered?" A hush settled over the studio. The audience, so lively moments ago, had gone pin-drop silent. The cheerful stage lights now seemed to highlight the hostility rather than the glamour. Jennifer leaned forward, her tone still calm but now unmistakably firm. "I came here expecting a conversation. What I'm getting feels more like an interrogation." Joy smirked, not backing down. "If you think this is tough, maybe you've been surrounded by too many spiel. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking, that behind the glitz, maybe there's not as much substance as people like to believe." Jennifer's smile vanished entirely. "Are you calling me fake?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Joy shrugged. "I'm just pointing out that when someone's entire personal life is a tabloid headline items, breakups, makeups, all with statements from your PR team, it's hard not to wonder if the line between authenticity and branding disappeared a long time ago." This time, Jennifer didn't answer right away. She sat back, took a breath, then, clearly restraining herself, she said, "My relationships have been public. Yes, that doesn't give you the right to weaponize them. You called the paparazzi yourself sometimes." Joy countered, "You crafted those narratives. You released those quotes. Don't act like a victim when you've been steering the ship." That was it. The moment Jennifer stood up, the sound of her chair scraping the studio floor was louder than it should have been. "You call this journalism?" she asked. "You think you're doing the world a favor by tearing me down? I've worked for over 2 decades in this industry. I've built a career on more than just red carpets and headlines. I'm a producer, a mother, a Latina woman who's had to fight twice as hard to be taken seriously. And you sit behind a desk and throw stones for ratings." Joy leaned in, suddenly energized. "Oh please, don't play the 'I'm just a victim of the media' card. You've turned your image into a brand and your brand into an empire. That's not oppression, it's marketing genius. But don't insult our intelligence by pretending it's all heart and hustle." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "What you're doing isn't tough questioning. It's cruelty wrapped in faux concern." Joy smirked again, but the glimmer of confidence was starting to fade. "If you can't handle someone questioning your choices, maybe it's time to stop acting like those choices are above criticism." "Criticism is fine," Jennifer said. "Bullying isn't, and what you're doing, what this has become, it's not a conversation. It's an ambush." Still, Joy pressed on. "Ambush, you walked into this studio with an army of stylists, assistants, and handlers. Don't act like you're some underdog. You're Jennifer Lopez. But just because you've got the spotlight doesn't mean you're above being held accountable. Jennifer looked her square in the eyes. Accountability doesn't mean character assassination. And let me tell you something, having power doesn't mean I owe you access to every inch of my life. You don't get to throw around accusations just because you don't like how I choose to live. The tension in the room was unbearable now. The air was thick with something heavy and unspoken. Even the studio lights seemed to dim. Joy wasn't finished. What about the roles you've taken from other actresses? Roles that could have gone to someone new, someone who doesn't already have an empire and a name. Isn't that selfish? Jennifer blinked, her jaw clenched. I auditioned. I built what I have, and I never took anything that wasn't offered to me because of my work ethic and talent. Joy leaned forward one last time, her voice rising, desperate to regain control. Then show us the talent. Do something different. Prove you're more than a pretty face in a rom-com. Jennifer took a step closer, her voice even but cold. You don't get to decide my worth, and you don't get to frame ambition as arrogance because it makes you uncomfortable. And with that, the show had crossed the line from uncomfortable to unforgettable. The silence that followed Jennifer's last words wasn't empty, it was electric. Everyone in the room felt it. The audience, the crew, even the co-host sitting just inches away. No one dared to interrupt. Jennifer Lopez had taken back control, and for the first time since the segment began, Joy Behar looked like she didn't know what to say. Jennifer stood her ground. She wasn't shouting. She didn't need to. Her words cut sharper than any scream ever could. Let's be clear, Joy. You came into this with a narrative. You wanted a viral clip, not a conversation. You wanted to poke, prod, provoke. You could frame me as some self-obsessed diva who can't handle criticism. Joy blinked, her smug armor beginning to crack. That's not what I Yes, it is. Jennifer interrupted, firm but not frantic. Because if you really wanted to talk about my work, we'd be talking about my upcoming tour, or the film, or my production company's efforts to uplift Latina voices in Hollywood. But you didn't want that. You wanted to corner me. You wanted a reaction. And you gave me one. Joy snapped back, her voice rising with a defensive edge. You stood up. You pushed back. And now we've got your real face. Jennifer shook her head slowly, her disappointment replacing any last trace of anger. No, Joy, you didn't get my real face. What you got was my restraint. What you got was a woman exhausted by years of being told she had to smile through disrespect. Sunny Hostin leaned forward then, finally stepping in. Maybe this conversation has gone too far, she said carefully, her voice a contrast to the chaos unraveling. We invited Jennifer here as a guest. That comes with a level of basic respect, regardless of the questions being asked. Joy held up a hand toward Sunny, dismissing her interjection. Let's not sugarcoat it. The audience doesn't want polished PR lines. They want truth. They want vulnerability, and I've given them that, Jennifer replied, locking eyes with Joy. But vulnerability isn't what you were after. You weren't seeking truth. You were looking for cracks, places to dig in and dismantle. But here's the thing about building your life on integrity. There are no weak spots. Not the kind you're looking for. Joy stood now, too, as if trying to match Jennifer's presence. Integrity, she scoffed. This is daytime TV. Jennifer, people don't tune in for integrity. They tune in for entertainment. Then maybe it's time we change what people expect from daytime TV, Jennifer shot back. Maybe it's time we demand more than drama and cheap shots. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but the audience erupted not with applause, not yet but with murmurs, agreement, realization something was shifting, and Joy could feel it. The control she'd once had in the palm of her hand was slipping like sand through fingers. I've been in this business long enough, Jennifer continued, her voice lower now, more reflective, to know when I'm being set up. But I've also been in it long enough to know that walking away doesn't mean weakness, it means knowing your worth. And then she turned to the audience, to the cameras, to everyone who had just witnessed a conversation that had mutated into a cultural moment, to anyone watching this who's ever been belittled, who's ever been made to feel small for having ambition, for being proud of who they are and what they've built. Let this be a reminder. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't have to smile through disrespect. And you are allowed to walk away from people who try to dim your light. At that, she started to gather her things. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some gasped, others clapped, a few stood. Joy looked stunned. You're walking out. I am, Jennifer replied matter-of-factly, because I came here to talk about my work, my passions, the things that matter to me. But that clearly wasn't your intention, and I'm not going to stand here and be anyone's punching bag just to satisfy someone's idea of a headline. The camera panned to the other hosts. Whoopi Goldberg had been unusually quiet, but her expression said everything: disbelief, disappointment, and maybe even a touch of admiration. Sarah N. whispered something to Sunny, both nodding. As Jennifer turned to leave, Joy called after her, you know, you're going to look like the bad guy in this. Jennifer stopped. No, she said without turning around. I won't. Because the difference between us, Joy, is that I didn't come here to create a spectacle. I came here to have a conversation. You decided to turn it into a take, and I'm not playing that game. She exited the stage, and for a moment, it felt like the whole studio held its breath. The producers scrambled. The teleprompter froze. The live broadcast awkwardly cut to commercial. Backstage, Jennifer took a deep breath. An assistant reached for her hand, but she waved them off gently. She wasn't crying. She wasn't flustered. She was centered, grounded in the truth of what had just happened. It took several minutes before anyone said anything back on stage. Joy sat down slowly, as if realizing too late that her power move had cost her everything. Sunny broke the silence again, this time more decisively. "We need to talk about what just happened," she said directly into the camera. That wasn't journalism. That wasn't productive. That wasn't honest conversation. That was a setup. And we should have stopped it sooner. Sarah nodded beside her. Jennifer didn't come here expecting a free pass, but she deserved respect. "I agree," Whoopi added. Her tone calm, but authoritative, carried the finality of a verdict. "We're better than that. We have to be." The rest of the segment was scrapped. The audience was dismissed early. Outside the studio, social media had already caught fire. Clips from the confrontation were going viral. Hashtags like #IST, and with JLO, #TheViewMeltdown, and #RespectWomen, now were trending worldwide. In the days that followed, public support overwhelmingly poured in for Jennifer. Celebrities, activists, journalists, and fans all took to their platforms to share messages of solidarity. Jennifer released a brief statement thanking those who stood by her, reiterating that walking away from toxicity is not weakness, it's strength. Joy, on the other hand, faced a mounting backlash. The network issued a formal apology. Rumors circulated about internal meetings, disciplinary actions, and even temporary suspension. Ratings for The View dropped in the immediate aftermath, and opinion pieces flooded the internet, questioning the ethics of ambush interviews in modern media. But perhaps, the most powerful impact came not from networks or tweets, but from everyday people. Women, especially, shared their own stories of being dismissed, disrespected, and demeaned in their fields. Jennifer Lopez had, perhaps unintentionally, become a voice for all those moments when someone chooses dignity over submission. Weeks later, Jennifer returned to a different program this time, one hosted by a fellow Latina journalist. The conversation was everything the last one hadn't been: respectful, deep, illuminating. They talked about her work, her roots, the lessons of resilience. She even laughed trio laughter, not the kind forced under pressure. When asked about that day on The View, Jennifer responded simply, "That moment wasn't about me. It was about something bigger, and I'm glad people saw it for what it was. Because if it reminded just one person that they have the right to set boundaries, then it was worth it." That clip, too, went viral. But not because it was dramatic, because it was true. Jennifer Lopez didn't just walk out of a hostile interview. She walked into her power. And in doing so, she reminded the world of something we all need to hear. You don't have to shrink to fit someone else's frame. You don't have to stay silent just to keep the peace. You don't have to accept disrespect, no matter how loud the room gets. You can stand up, you can speak out. And yes, when necessary, you can walk away.